Street circuits and Gen 4 stock cars rarely go hand in hand, but tonight, things are a little bit different. Welcome back to St. Petersburg, but this time it's with, of course, the Gen 4 machines of decades past. You're watching the NSR Gen 4 series, and tonight, this is the Sirius at St. Pete. St. Petersburg, Florida will come alive. The GP circuit used most commonly in the Indycar series is instead the home to NASCAR stock cars for 60 laps tonight. Qualifying has just begun, and with less than 8 minutes on the clock, drivers are preparing to set down fast times before the racing action begins. Welcome back to coverage live on FTN Broadcasting. Subbing in for Garrett Hess, who has brought you the whole season so far. I'll be your commentator and producer tonight. I'm David Kreutz. Welcome back to NSR, and it's a little bit different than all the races we've covered so far this season, the vast majority of which have been ovals. On the week-by-week basis, you don't often see these drivers taking left-hand and right-hand turns. So far, none of them have put a time in, but we're watching Tony Kurdziel, who could be the very first. Tony, that time by, his time was 1 minute, 18 seconds, .503, with an average speed of 81 miles an hour. Tony finds himself at the top of the board with the fastest lap of the session, and you can see the numbers as they run down the screen. Adam Gracie putting up the second quickest time so far, about a second off of Tony. It looks like this number 13 Ford Taurus is hooked up well. And as a matter of fact, we can take a look at driver telemetry over the course of these laps. Tony, you can see all the way down to first gear in sub segments, the long straightaway at the end of the lap. He's able to put it all the way up into fourth. So far, he's convincingly the fastest driver, as Robert and Brian Wiggins have both gotten themselves laps. They sit third and fourth, respectively. Brian, first gear as he goes through for his second lap now. And we have a total of 13 drivers running in this race. Dawson Kent now one of them who's looking to put up his first lap. Kent is currently seated ninth. His practice times were not at the head of the field. Tony Kurdziel also put up the fastest time in practice, so we'll see if anyone is set to beat him here. Dawson's going to come around to end his lap this time by coming toward the very final hairpin-like bend at the end of the circuit. Tony Kurdziel's second lap is faster than his first, faster than his fastest in practice, and he's up to the top of the board as John Bittler goes second. Dawson Kent coming across the line this time by. This will end his first lap, and for Dawson, that lap time doesn't appear to be validated. He will go for another with 5 minutes and 21 seconds left on the clock. John Bittler was briefly in second place and is now in a three-man race for that position. Adam Gracie got up to second. Adam DeFore was able to get third. Now slotted just between the two drivers we previously mentioned. Less than 5 minutes remaining. Ray Partridge now fifth. The Wiggins family dropped down to sixth and seventh place as it stands. So it comes down to whether or not anyone can top the time that Tony Kurdziel sent. Fast lap time, 1 minute 17.528. Gap between first and second, time-wise, 1.2 seconds. And at a road circuit, that's a very convincing margin. Over 1.8 miles, a second lap faster each time by. Could be enough to put a driver one lap down today. Second place is now Mark Sakochi at the line for Adam DeFore. 1:18.902 for DeFore will not be enough. Mark is now in second. Ray Partridge got up to third and is off the racetrack. Dawson Kemp now backs it down. Colton English is one of the last taking laps. Colton is now heading down the back of the final straightaway into turn one. That time by for English. Driver number 45 puts up the 11th quickest time, moves up to 10th. It's now James Young, Chris Norris, and Elijah Grant without a lap. So far, Tony Kurdziel, the consistently fastest man on the racing circuit, he's still up there with more than a second of leeway. It doesn't look like anyone is going to touch him, as English still finds himself far off, 3 minutes remaining. Elijah Grant, the only other driver taking a time, but as you can see, Grant with some front end damage before completing his qualifying run. He's still going though. Taking a ride on board with Elijah Grant, you'll see what it's like. Elijah into the final hairpin. This is the end of his second and last lap. For Grant, neither of these laps are going to put him on the board, as that lap was not validated. On the track now, Dawson Kent, and he looks to be the one and only driver still out there. Every other driver has either put down a lap or they've decided not to put down a lap. So that leaves us with 3 that don't have times, 10 that do, and a qualifying lineup that has all but been decided before we go green. 1 pace lap coming up very, very soon, but it looks like your qualifying lineup has been set here from St. Petersburg, and the man who will be at the head of the field is Tony Kurdziel. His 2-lap average, a 1 minute 18.015 second time, comes off the back of an amazing final lap. Now, of course, that first lap as well, but you can see the average maintaining consistency, as Kurdziel's worst time would have only dropped him 1 spot in the lineup, even with tire wear. 1:17.528. And Tony sits at the head of the field with the fastest times overall. 1:17.528, 1:18.503. And his lap average sits right in the middle. Compare that to Mark Sakochi, who only put 1 lap down and decided to sit on that. He did not take his second lap, although he was eligible. Ray Partridge did. You can see considerably slower on the second and final lap. His lap average was just about a second slower than Tony Kurdziel's. Colt Ansley will be the final driver to join the field, as it looks like driver number 86 just registered for this session as the 14th and final driver to enter the field. He won't be able to put a qualifying time in, but interesting to note, 1 more driver with us to finish off the night. Colt Ansley, driver number 86. And so the last addition to your starting lineup is going to cap off, as we have 14 drivers set to go at it from St. Petersburg. Qualifying has concluded. Lineup has been set. All eyes on the fastest man, Tony Kurdziel. As with qualifying said and done, we'll move on to lining up our drivers for our one and only pace lap before 60 racing laps. Drivers have a 5-minute warm-up session here. We'll see if they're allowed to use it. If not, we're heading directly to the big show and our main feature. Adam Gracie, Robert Wiggins, first drivers to jump onto the racetrack, and already testing out the limits. Qualifying lineup has been decided, so before we go racing, let's run through it. On the inside of row number 1 is Tony Kurdziel, who you see on the screen right now. Tony's Ford Taurus is hooked up well and is considerably faster than every other driver. He finds himself at the top of the board with the only sub 118 lap. He dropped it down to a 1 minute 17.528. And it was second place Mark Sakochi on the lineup, 118.211. still half a second faster than the next closest. Things got closer as the 29 of Ray Partridge was able to take third position with a 1:18.709. The Kevin Harvick-inspired paint scheme and the 29 are just ahead of Adam Gracie. Gracie will line up fourth place in today's main showdown. Adam DeFore in the number 5 goes fifth. John Bittler in the number 88 takes P6. And the 27 of Dawson Kent goes 7th with Robert Wiggins, P8. Robert is the leading of those Wiggins boys as Brian Wiggins ends up going 9th. And the last driver to take a time, Colton English, the 45 car, goes 10th. Still a few more drivers after that. Now 4 as James Young goes 11th, Cole Ansley goes 12th, and Chris Norris goes 13th. Final driver on your field tonight is driver number 4. That is Elijah Grant. Grant is at the tail end of the field, a field of 14 set to take on the virtual St. Petersburg Street Circuit. So at the head of the field, once again, your top 10 is led by Tony Kurdziel, as we are just minutes away from stepping foot in green flag territory and getting back to business once again. Elijah Grant all the way up to Tony Kurdziel. Doesn't matter where these drivers are lined up for the big show. They are all getting ready to rumble and taking their final preparation laps. Weather today, St. Pete. Well, the ambient temperature might not be that bad, but take a look at the big difference. It is now a 44-degree disparity between ambient temperature and track temp. 84 degrees Fahrenheit for the track temperature. It's 128. And with that being such a huge difference, tire wear is going to be the bane of every driver's existence tonight. That's going to be the big trouble. You are scrubbing off tires at a hard-fought rate from beginning to end. And now, as it even gets a little bit warmer in this final warm-up session, you're going to see maybe track temp in the 130s. That's going to be very difficult. Partly cloudy skies, sunshine cover doesn't make things any better in that sense either, but a relatively low wind and moderate humidity aren't going to add any more insult to injury. Either way, track temperature in the 120s says a lot by itself. That's something that's going to be difficult for just about any driver to deal with. Really doesn't matter who you are. A minute now left in our warm-up session before we go green. Tony Kurdziel, the fastest driver by a convincing margin. Most drivers have decided to step back to pit road, although a few do remain on track. Not sure how close drivers are going to be to one another all race long. It's going to be very difficult for drivers to be with each other pace-wise. Colton English now finds himself on the track. He is going first gear through that opening section, gets it up to second just a bit. All 4 gears are utilized at this track. That's what makes it even more difficult. It's the game of working all your inputs right. Pedals, steering, and of course the gearbox. You don't want to blow a motor, but you got to play it really, really intense from beginning to end to even have a shot. Colton English is catching up to Mark Sakochi, who in the number 8 tonight is running one of multiple tribute paint schemes. Practice, qualifying, final warm-up have concluded. And before we go racing tonight, we will have ourselves a tribute through this pace lap to one of racing's greatest who so quickly left us behind. Practice and qualifying have ended. So now the track is empty one more time. It's a brief moment of silence on the circuit right now, and it will remain that way to the end of this lap. We go green just next time by. The field lines up now, and as it is led tonight by our leading man, of course, that is Tony Kurdziel. He will lead the parade on this one lap as we look back and honor and remember Kyle Busch. Mark Sakochi's number 8 regularly designed after Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s likeness, and you'll see that on the timing ticker today. He, alongside Adam DeFore, are running tribute paint schemes to different stages of Kyle's career. Now, 63 NASCAR Cup Series wins, first of which coming 21 years ago now, or 20 years ago, when Kyle was at the age of 21 in Fontana, California. His final points-paying race just last Saturday at the Dover Motor Speedway, a victory, his 69th and final in the NASCAR Truck Series. The number 8 that Mark Sakochi rides with today is the Richard Childress 8 that donned his final Cup Series appearance this Sunday. Kyle Busch passed away after severe complications with pneumonia turned to sepsis, leading to an additional unforeseen number of complications. He was hospitalized on Thursday and passed away later that evening. Now, as we get ready to go green, we'll take the rest of this pace lap in silence to honor one of Stock Cars Racing's greatest. He was only 41. "60 laps ahead of us on this Saturday night, and for the first time all season long, led by Tony Kurtzil and Mark Sakochi, the NSR Gen 4 field will be going green at a street circuit. Barney the Flagman waves the green on the left side of our screens here, and it's time to get rolling from St. Pete. Kurtzil with a dominant entry into turn 1. He'll have the 14-car field at his mercy as he begins the action from St. Petersburg. We're underway for the streets of Florida. At the end of this opening lap, it is Kurtzil convincingly ahead of the rest of the field. And it looks like now the battle becomes the mid-pack, and it's multiple. A 3-car battle starting to begin with John Bittler to the outside, and that number 88, he is alongside Brian Wiggins, and they're at each other's throats. Looks like now Bittler is going to lead a 5-car posse. Notably, the number 88 also redesigned tonight. The Mountain Dew machine, that Chevrolet Monte Carlo with double 8s, the Richard Childress 8s that were just retired. Of course, the number 33 machine finding itself back this week at Charlotte for Austin Hill. Two laps in out of 60. Brian Wiggins, there's the number 3. He finds himself now in the 6th position. Robert Wiggins, top 5. You got that Ray Partridge driver. Number 4 on the lineup, the 29, as Adam DeFore now holds the bottom step of the podium. He's moved up 2 places. Three laps in out of 60. You got Adam Gracie, P2, Adam DeFore, P3, Ray Partridge, 4th. Robert Wiggins now sliding out of the circuit, barely holding it together. He'll get back in P5. Just behind is Bittler. Dawson Kent trying to move up on this fight. Bittler briefly led this battle, but already Robert Wiggins able to get away. Robert qualified 8th, mind you. He's up 3 positions as they run. Now, I wonder what's going to happen next up. The driver, the number 26, Wiggins here, he's got a lot of pressure on him. Is he going to try to stay the course and defend hard, or is Bittler going to get it back from him fast? Defense is a big deal in terms of holding positions at such a tight circuit, but one wrong move and it could be multiple drivers wrecked. I don't know what's going to happen. In a few laps' time, we're probably going to see the outcome of it. Mark Sakochi, your second-place driver, passes a wrecking Brian Wiggins. Wiggins just got loose off the corner. He's going to have to straighten himself out and get going again. Wiggins in the 3. Now falls to 10th. Mark Sakochi holds his own. He is in that 9th position and running down the back straightaway hard. Ray Partridge, P8, Colton English, 9th. And the problems for Wiggins continue. Brian qualifying 9th and now having to go in for very early repairs. Just 4 laps into the main event. Tony Kurtzio leads by 2.5 seconds. Adam Gracie has not yet been able to get close. But keep in mind that other gaps are starting to tighten up. And Adam DeFore is looking for the 2nd position just about as fast as he can. John Bittler coming up on lap traffic already. And that is a highly damaged number 26. Well, it looks like that's not lap traffic, but instead Robert Wiggins. Colt Ansley was the lap traffic this group was coming up on. He just disconnected, the first retiree of the night. Wiggins, despite the fact he has no front end, is running in 4th and is now heading to pit road. John Bittler more of the same. Early pit stops for some of these drivers. And they're going to be making calls as fast as they can, as Bittler has also got a bent up front end. Now I'm wondering what happened for John as the damage just started showing. Here's a replay on the incidents that these drivers have had. John Bittler, he was as high as 6th, started the day there, and it looks like otherwise he's gone down and down. Incident with he and the number 26 ahead of him, Robert Wiggins. Now this is how it came to be. Robert trying to get to the inside there, couldn't quite. And he continues to try to undercut on the inside line and ends up damaging himself off the apex of the corner and makes contact with the wall. Robert got away, but got loose. And just like that, Wiggins, both drivers, have huge, huge problems. Now, it looks like they didn't end up actually making contact with each other, but just got loose at the same time and now have a lot of damage to repair. Pulling back to the live feed, you can see here Robert Wiggins and John Bittler still on pit road. They are going to be north of a lap down by the time Tony Kurtzio gets to them. Mark Sakochi back up to 5th, and he has already dropped quite a few positions and is on his way back up. Now you look at that, over the course of these last few laps, the gap between the leaders and 4th place has opened up wide. When you look at the last 5 laps, or 4 of the last 5 for Adam DeFore in 2nd, it's a 4-second deficit, and it has only grown. Right now, Tony Kurtzale looks to have it locked down, and even through the tighter segments, the gap continues to expand. Watch the rundown to the end of this lap. Tony Kurtzale expanding the gap to north of 3 seconds as they cross the start-finish line, and just behind is Adam DeFore. That time around, actually, Adam is going to be able to pull it under 3 seconds with a strong lap. That time by 1:18.293. The previous lap of 1:19.319. So, north of a second's worth of improvement. Nevertheless, Tony Kurtzale, Mr. Consistency with the speed, has remained above all other drivers and is now coming up on his own form of lap traffic. Let's see how he navigates through this one as we take a ride on board. Driver number 4, Elijah Grant, gets out of the way. Next on the menu is Chris Norris. Norris makes it pretty easy. And just like that, Tony Kurtzale is going to make it around for another circuit. Driver number 13 getting off the exit of the last of 14 turns. He's got lap traffic now protecting him, but only just. Down to the inside, Chris Norris will head to pit road. Elijah Grant stays on the circuit. Adam DeFore pulls 1/1000th of a second on that lap. Just one. Basically identical times across those 2 laps. For Tony Kurtzale, it was a 1:24.67. For Adam DeFore, a 1:24.66. Strength is in the numbers right now, and the small differences that you're beginning to see, that's the difference between there being a battle for the lead and there not being one. So far, looking down the line, no fast repairs available for these drivers, so when they're on pit road, they're on there for a long while. John Bittler, it took him more than a lap and a half to get his front end back on. That's why he runs now 2 laps down and in 12th. Robert Wiggins, 2 laps down and in 13th, is still there trying to get things solved. And Cole Ansley is 5 laps down and retired. Damage doesn't make things easy. It makes it quite the opposite tonight. And the only driver who's laps down and clean, it appears, is James Young. Young looks like he got on the racing circuit a bit later than he wanted to. Out finds himself 2 down, coming up perhaps on Brian Wiggins, who's having some brake troubles as we catch up to driver number 3. Wiggins now runs 1 spot under where he qualified, beginning the day in 9th. He now holds his own in P10. The Wiggins boys separate, but it is Brian with the advantage. Even though Robert got the qualifying edge, he just wasn't able to get through in his opening laps, and with a lot more damage, advantage Brian in that fight. Tony Kurtzale leads the way by a convincing margin, convincing enough that he's in fact coming up on Wiggins to put him a lap down. Now let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing here in terms of the championship fight and how important this race is for some of these drivers here. On a week-by-week basis, the championship race is, of course, ever-changing. Talking about our race schedule, we are coming toward the long and hot portion of our summer stretch. We've got ourselves still a majority of the race coming up. Of course, racing season next week is going to be Atlanta. It'll be the All-Star race, so there will be a little bit of time until things are really put together. Then after that, you got Charlotte, you got South Boston, Chicagoland, Miami, and Michigan for the regular season standings. It's essential to get the wins in early. I think that's the big deal. And for Tony Kurzio, this race for him could be a layup championship points-wise. If you take the championship points from a win like this, well, it's so much of an advantage compared to drivers that have to slug it out on the ovals. A lot of these guys are relatively the same speed on the oval circuits. It's a little bit different when you're at a road course and there's one or two dominant drivers. Now, taking a look at the championship standings, we're trying to get a read on it right now just to get the right connection. We'll get back to you when the full standings are loaded, but in the meanwhile, we do know one thing. Tony Kurzio, he's got a lot to make of this race. So far, he's doing more than enough. He's led every lap, pole position, and leads the first 10. Do expect pit stops sometime soon, but for now, no concerns. Last lap speed and time. Tony Kurzio, a 1:19.731 versus a 1:19.414 for Adam DeFore. Advantage Adam. Fastest lap on the track tonight, also run by Adam. And it looks like slowly but surely he has been able to creep into the frame of the race leader. Tony passes another. Driver number 3 falls back. But DeFore is there. Gap between leaders is now under a second, the smallest margin it has been since lap 1. Under a second now. Kurzio has been aggressive early. Adam DeFore has gotten a more patient route and looks like it's paying off. Take a quick ride on board with some driver telemetry, and in real time you'll see every move Adam's making. Not the best launch out of the final corner. But through the technical section, it's pretty clear that it's all about Kurzio, then DeFore. iBog in the chat. Thank you for stopping by. Great to have you here. Don't know if you've watched FTN before, but a big fan of all the work that you put in with overlays. And a personal message from myself and the entire team. A lot of that work laid the ground and foundation for us to broadcast, so it means a lot to have you here. Number 13, definitely feeling the pressure. Tony having himself a lot of work cut out for him that maybe he didn't expect. A little bit loose there. And as you can see, very, very tricky for driver number 13 to keep himself composed, shall we say, in these final moments. Perhaps final moments. We don't know if he's going to lose that lead or not. 12 laps in at a 60. We do know that before halfway, we're expecting to see a pit stop. Look at that. Tony Kurzio over the curbs. Coming up on another lap driver. These top two are the story of the race. Next closest battle is for third. Sakochi is coming up on the 17 of Gracie. For Sakochi, that's trying to recover from a second place start he had, but he hasn't yet been able to make things back up. Qualified second, fell down to as low as 9th after an early incident. Every other driver who was ahead of him is wrecked. He now returns to the top 5 and is expecting again to make it up to the top 3. That, of course, is if he can keep up the pace he's been on over the last few laps. 1 minute, 19.5 second run for driver number 8. 1 minute, 21.244 for Adam Gracie in the 17. Adam, tremendously slower over that last circuit. Coming toward the first quarter of this race and its conclusion, there are only 6 drivers on the lead lap. This man is the last of them. That is Colton English. English in the Chevrolet Monte Carlo, iRacing sponsored and all, has been running calmly, and that's beat out half the field just by being on the track and staying out of trouble. If anyone else has an incident ahead of him, he may be poised for a top 5 finish just for keeping his head out of any trouble. Tony, Adam, gap is 0.7 of a second between these two drivers, and it is now tighter than it has been all night long. Fastest lap to this day, of course, has been run by Adam DeFore, 1:18.293 with an average speed of 81.4 miles an hour. Adam ran that very early in this stint, but keep in mind he's been faster recently and has the fastest overall lap. He'll now cut to the outside, can't quite get there, and now lap traffic. Driver number 26 passed and fast. That's Robert Wiggins. Oh, he's not only there, but he's got room. Adam DeFore right on the back bumper of Tony Kurdziel. He can't complete the job that time by. He'll have to line himself back up in it. Again, the big example that we've seen out of Adam DeFore, his performance is best when it's technical. He'll try to get a better launch out of this last corner, still can't. Tony Kurdziel plays the hairpin best and moves up and ahead. Into turn 1, the gap will be 520 thousandths of a second. That's 5/10 into the opening corner. Big mistake by Tony Kurdziel. He goes way wide, but still holds on to the apex. He won't for long. Adam DeFore with the race lead. Great pass. Just a small bobble makes the difference. Right on board with DeFore. Here's a replay on the moment of the pass. All that Adam had to do right there was wait. And with patience being so critical, just has to let things settle out. Sakochi is back in third. DeFore is now leading the way. Tony Kurdziel finds himself lost with damage. And we missed that in that exchange. He also got damage and pushed himself one step too far. Again, it's never over until it's over, and so quickly that has been proven. Problems for driver number 13. One lap ago was your leader, and he might be facing pit road and the wrecker up next. Taking a look one more time. Number 1 cause of incident today, stepping on the throttle too early, coming into a straightaway. Coming out of that University of South Florida turn, marked well with some tire barriers. Well, he couldn't get there this time. Cement, firm cement hit for Tony. And there is no mercy when you're in a situation like that. He's probably going to have to relinquish second. Mark Sakochi is going to end up with a shot at P2 if Tony decides to go to pit road early. "16 laps in out of 60. The halfway comes at 30. Right now, you've got 6 drivers still on the lead lap. With the lead change, Adam DeFore is on a faster path, even though the laps that Kurdziel was running, but still hasn't yet gotten up to Colton English. Tony this time by faced with a choice. Do you go in early, get damage repair, or do you stay out? For the time being, Tony decides to stay. He'll wait it out and hope something happens up ahead, but he has lost close to 10 seconds on the racing circuit. DeFore, Kurdziel, Mark Sakochi, your 1, 2, 3. Sakochi now 3 seconds up on his next closest competitor, Adam Gracie. A quick ride on board with driver number 8 here and see what it's like as he's got himself clean air all around. Mark right now coming up on that lap traffic. If you weren't with us at the beginning of the race, Mark with perhaps the most profound paint scheme of the week. This number 8, of course, with the M&M's paint scheme made famous and synonymous with Joe Gibbs Racing and Kyle Busch and his decade-and-a-half tenure with that team, producing more than 55 of Kyle Busch's NASCAR Cup Series race wins. 4 came with Hendrick Motorsport, 3 with Richard Childress, the remaining with Joe Gibbs. This number 8, the one that Kyle Busch ran until his very final appearance in the NASCAR Cup Series last Sunday at Dover Motor Speedway. And contact right behind, number 4, Elijah Grant goes around. Another incident for Grant. The Kodak car luckily escaping as Mark Sakochi, but another front end lost. Wondering what happened there for Elijah Grant as again a driver loses control. We're running with 110% engine power today, which might not make sense, but if you're not on iRacing, that's why. Now there's the ability to basically overclock the engine in the session, which gives these drivers 10% extra power on every single one of them, and combining that with the type of racing you get at these road courses with Gen 4 stock cars already, well, I can't imagine what you would expect to see. I mean, for any driver, even Kurtzil, who led the opening part, he's been struggling. It takes a different level of composure to be good from beginning to end with some of the best stuff. Adam DeFore has absolutely done that. He leads now by 13 seconds. Tony Kurdziel has been in this back and forth battle with 12th place. That's the man, Robert Wiggins. Wiggins was around during the fight these two drivers had, and in fact, he was passed by both of the top 2. Since this point, he's been a little bit faster than Kurdziel, and perhaps that's the most insulting part of this night for Tony. He has been outpaced and basically walked around the circuit by a lapper. Still on the track, he has decided not to quit on the basis of all that damage, and instead he's going to try to hold it out until the big pit stop cycle comes through. You aren't very far away from that happening. Just about 10 laps away for the halfway portion. And the rest of this race is probably going to play out with natural strategy. No reason to throw a yellow flag, but Kurdziel, if he has any mandatory damage, he'll be in a lot of trouble. Dawson Kent, the days of Thunder City Chevrolet. Maybe one or the other, although inadvertently, tributes to Kyle Busch. The nickname Rowdy coming in part from driver number 51 in that movie, Rowdy Burns. As Kent goes to the inside, he'll be going down for pit service early. Nobody else around him here, but with some front end damage compounding, it looks like another Chevy Monte Carlo that has no choice but to drop out of contention, at least for now. Colton English is still on the lead lap. Adam DeFore in the Hendrick Motorsport Kyle Busch paint scheme now leads. So 2 of the 3 tribute schemes are on the podium. Mark Sakochi might just make it a 1-2. The gap has become just 2 seconds to Tony Kurdziel. Kyle Busch getting his first NASCAR Cup Series starts with Hendrick Motorsport in the number 84 in the year 2004. Ran his rookie tenure 2005, completed 3 full-time seasons as well as the part-time campaign in 2004 before making the move to Joe Gibbs in 2008. Adam is coming up quickly on Colton, and it looks like Mark Sakochi coming up even quicker on Tony Kurdziel. Mark was able to get by on Tony, and it looks like now the distance between these drivers is 0.7 of a second. Heading past the Bayfront Hospital signage and getting to the final sector of this circuit, Mark Sakochi is going to be on all offense now as he gets down to the pure cement. This is the corner where Kurdziel had his previous incident. He barely escapes the wall. And it's going to be a dogfight between these two now for the second spot. Very likely, no matter how it plays out for now, the ending is going to be the same. Sakochi gets by because he has less damage, but that's not a guarantee. Let's see how well Tony can defend second place, if at all. He'll go wide and try to cut nicely into the apex of the hairpin. Still pulls away slightly better than Mark Sakochi does. At the line again, Tony is still in second. Now 20 seconds behind Adam DeFore. Both drivers lean in rather aggressively to sausage curbs as they get by trouble. Driver number 31, James Young, again in an incident. That's enough of distraction to give Sakochi room. Now heading back towards the USF corner and the cement. If Kurdziel's going to push, he'll have no room for error after this. And it looks like pretty convincingly, Mark Sakochi gets up to second place. Adam Gracie now getting off of pit road after service. Starting to look now at how long drivers are on the racetrack before going to pit road. Laps since last pit. You'll see them on the left side of your screen. A majority of drivers have gone more than 10 laps since they've gone to pit road. For many of them, that's on the basis of damage repairs. I don't think anyone so far has taken a quote-unquote necessary pit stop. Now, when I say necessary, I mean a pit stop that's not at all related to requiring damage repair. In theory, if a driver were to maintain a completely clean car, as someone like Colton English has, they wouldn't have to go down to pit road. So, right now, it looks like the name of the game, avoid pit road as much as you can. Starting to run the numbers, doing some estimates. We're definitely going to see a pit stop cycle within the next 10 laps. These drivers do not have enough fuel in the tank to go the whole distance today. St. Petersburg Grand Prix, about 1.8 miles every lap. That's about, when you take that into consideration for the entire night, 108 miles. The fuel cell, at most, is going to give you some 90 miles. 90. Maybe you can push it 95, but you cannot go all the way before having to head down to pit road. Adam Gracie is very likely going to be off pit road, rather off the lead lap soon, since he came off pit road. But no trouble for Adam DeFore to get by John Bittler. He'll pull to the side, and the 5 gets another clean and easy pass. Racing is starting to settle down here. St. Pete. A lot of laps between drivers. A lot of drivers whose positions are settled. And for a majority of the field, that means they're about to ride things out until the pit stops. And even then, you've got more than 30 laps where most positions are pretty well decided. Adam Gracie deciding to go to pit road early is a bit of a risk, but it makes sense in terms of trying to catch up to Tony Kurdziel, if that is the end goal. Tony right now running a 1:23 on a lap-by-lap basis. Adam Gracie was 3 seconds faster on that lap. If he just continues that pace for maybe 10 to 15 more laps, that's a conservative estimate, he would be able to get himself to the end of this race in third, comfortably. That's how different the pace is between those drivers now, as at the end of these final moments of the first half, the race pace has definitely shifted between who has control and who doesn't. Tony Kurdziel running on the last step of the podium. He has himself right now the slowest of all drivers on the lead lap. And let's see, his pace is more comparable to last time by 11th place, Robert Wiggins. Wiggins, who he was so close to for all those laps, is still just about the most similar driver in terms of pace. Granted, Tony has a lot of front-end damage, so he's trying to keep up with drivers and cars that did not have that level of damage. Right now, that's the hardest thing for him. He is slightly quicker than the 11th place driver, but a lot of that just comes down to damage. Five laps to go until halfway. No guarantee when drivers come in. They've got a lot of time to come through. Adam to 4 leads by 20 seconds still. Tony Kurdziel, 30 seconds back. A minute back is Adam Grace's. One lap down now. Colton English moves up into 4th. And it looks like getting closer and closer to the fight ahead of him. Dawson Kent, you'll see him here alone in 6, 2 laps down. Brian Wiggins, John Bittler 3 down. Elijah Grant has a big front end damage. James Young has been on pit road for a prolonged period. Might be enough for Robert Wiggins get himself up into the picture in the top 10. Chris Norris is 11 laps down. Ray Partridge is the final driver still on the track. He is 12 laps down and just rolled off pit road. Literally just got his final service seconds done. 4 tires and fuel. He looks to have a mostly cleaned up car. The backside has a little bit of damage, but either way, he'll continue on. He just got ahead of Elijah Grant, and Elijah Grant is set to get passed by Adam DeFore. Adam's car is still entirely clean as number 4 goes for a slide. The cleanest driver on the circuit is the one who is due to get the best results. Coming up now in what's become a very close fight, Adam DeFore making his way past driver number 29, and Ray Partridge, who is still in pursuit of a few positions, has a lot of work cut out for him. 21 seconds now the gap. Even when passing drivers, DeFore has maintained a slightly quicker pace. 25 seconds the difference between Kurdziel and Gracie. Take a look at the race gaps between position and position. Right now, the closest is Dawson Kent and Colton English. Those two drivers are now separate by 3 seconds. Looks like Kent over the last few laps has absolutely been much quicker. Even with some front end troubles, that hasn't concerned him all too much. Dawson, his day has been up and down, but he's just about where he started. Qualified in the 7th position, now runs in 6th. Earlier, he was as high as 4th when drivers were still shuffling each other out of the way. But it looks like as it stands, given the fact he is one lap down, just about the highest he can go is the next position in 5th. So the top 5 might be the ceiling, but it's still going to put him several positions up on where he qualified. One of the highest speed sections of the circuit, even with damage, Kent not afraid to challenge himself. I think that's one of the more exciting parts of these drivers, even when they've got some troubles. Pushing to the limit for every final position. Gap is now 2 seconds. And with lap traffic, it might become a little bit tighter. Dawson Kent getting the draft off the number 4. Elijah Grant pulls aside. Gap is 1 second. Dawson Kent is there. Question becomes, does Colton English have a response? Will he choose to respond? Will he let the chips fall where they may? And right now, with this being the closest battle on the racetrack, all eyes are on it. As whether or not this pass comes to fruition or if there's contact could also affect the lap traffic dilemma. Right now, it really doesn't look like anyone's got too many problems. There's a driver, the number 4 again, Elijah Grant. And right now, these guys are behind Sakochi and John Bittler. Doesn't look like they're going to get back up there. The advantage of track position is huge, though, at a circuit like St. Pete. We approach the second half. It's a very narrow racetrack, with the exception, just perhaps, of this front straightaway. It's very narrow, and it's very difficult to imagine going 3 wide ever, or even going 2 wide comfortably. 1 to pit road, Mark Sakochi. And so that is your runner-up driver opting to head in. He's going to do that a little bit earlier than all his competitors. Tony Kurdziel is still out there. No, Kurdziel just disconnected. Take a look back at what happened. Tony Kurdziel is out of the car. And day is done for your pole sitter. Here's why. It looks like this happened just moments ago before the pit stop cycle came to its beginning. Kent and English, the closest they've been all race long, will pull right up to that after. Slam. Caught right in the tire barrier and calling it a day. From the top of the field, top of the board, indisputably, now out of the race. Things aren't going to end all too well for Tony Kurdziel as he drops outside of the podium. The inside now for Dawson Kent. This is now for 4th, and Kent gets it. He'll stick the landing and take another spot. Adam Gracie moves up now into P3. And doesn't have to do all the dirty work to get up there. Mark Sakochi went down to pit road, and that didn't even lose him a spot. He's still close to 12 seconds ahead of Adam here. Doesn't really look like he's going to lose P2. And it definitely doesn't look like Adam Gracie has any reason to lose P3. He is the last driver right now on the lead lap, and that gives him a considerable gap against Kent. 43 seconds, in fact. Mark Sakochi coming up on Robert Wiggins. One of the lap drivers we've talked about the most, even though he hasn't really been involved in all too much. He'll head down to the inside and let Sakochi go through. Ryan Wiggins, 2 laps down. Tony Kurdziel now 2 down, but he'll fall further. Dawson Kent and Colton English are the only drivers that are just 1 lap down. Dawson Kent here, a little bit of internet trouble, but either way he is convincingly ahead of the 45. 32 laps in, 29 laps to go. These first half of laps, all 30 of them, have gone rather quick, and again, no expectation of seeing anything but green flag racing. 28 laps remain. Driver number 8 has been in good spirits throughout this event, and for good reason, to get back up to second place after falling as deep through the field as 9th looked to be almost an impossibility. All it took was a little bit of good luck. And for driver number 8, he got that through the incidents including John Bittler, Wiggins, English, and Kent. And notably, when your race leader, former race leader, Kurdziel, fell out of line and got himself up into the top 2. Just took a lot of incidents and a lot of problems ahead, but making the most of every mistake. Now driver number 8 runs firm P2. Adam DeFore, of course, only had to deal with 1 driver through the entire ordeal. That was Kurdziel, and once he was put away, there was no stopping this number 5. The CarQuest Monte Carlo has been the best of the best and is set now to finish the job with that title. 27 laps to go, and yeah, 3 drivers on the lead lap is remarkable. Let's talk about that, doing that under green and making no mistakes, even as everyone else has. It really does go to show who's the best of the best in terms of this racing circuit. Number 17, third by a minute of a deficit. Mark Sakochi, 40 seconds back. Now you'll see what happens next. And honestly, I don't think you're going to see too much particularly exciting up in front, but there are still battles to be run. I mean, if Colton English and Dawson can have a second run in again, that's the most likely thing that you're going to see. Well, that could get feisty, but otherwise, deficits have gotten rather open. I mean, gaps have continued to extend themselves, and it appears now the primary thing is just worrying about getting to the checkered flag one piece. Now, additionally, drivers are facing incident penalty limits, so I don't believe any of these drivers have gotten to that being an issue. But say, for instance, they had more than a certain amount of incidents, they would have had to be out of the circuit and disqualified. We've had no disqualifications tonight. Not a lot of contact has gone around, and while most drivers have damage, that's only 1 or 2 things. That isn't enough to disqualify a driver, so that hasn't come into play. Overall, running at a road course does allow for green and clean racing, even if a lot of drivers have trouble with it. That's one of the good things about it. The best and most consistent rise to the top on a regular basis. But anyone can have a clean race. I think Colton English, well, he's not the fastest driver, has been a really good example of it. Might not be one of his best races, per se, but even still, he's capitalized on every lap having meaning to it. Now, as it stands, the championship is led by Ray Partridge. Partridge is a driver who is 13 laps down and will have a chance to outscore his biggest title rival tonight, and that is Tony Kurdziel. They are dead tied coming into this race, but you know who's going to win this out? Adam DeFore. DeFore is 4 points back in the championship, and given the fact he leads by such a tremendous margin, and every point is correspondent with the position, every extra position is an extra point, DeFore has an opportunity to take the championship lead by storm just by finishing as a winner. That's all he'll need to do to come back out on top and lead the championship fight heading into our next race, and of course the All-Star break. 25 laps to go. He's still holding on much better than anyone else. So the championship lead is on the line. Mark Sakochi running in second. Also is going to be able to jump up to second in the championship. Right now he is 7 back on your current leader, that being Partridge. Partridge is going to still have to run quite a few laps to make it back up to Tony Kurdziel. There's still a 6-lap deficit between these two. Say, for instance, driver of that number 26, or rather 29. He gets by the 26, he gets by the 31, and he gets by the 13, Tony Kurdziel. And he gets up there to where Tony is and passes him for 9th. By that point, he would probably get himself to about the 15 lap to go marker, or thereabouts. And either he could retire then and there, or he keep on competing, because as it stands, there is only one driver on the racetrack who is running behind him. That is Chris Norris, and the other drivers right now don't seem to be in too much of a position where they're going to lose time, lose spots, or anything of that nature. "24 laps to go. Adam DeFore is the man of the hour with more than 20 seconds. Mark Sakochi now holds the race lead according to timing and scoring. Now that's because Adam DeFore took his pit stop. Adam just dropped to the back on a long stop. Sakochi holds fort. DeFore is just now getting back onto the track with competitive timing. However, he lost a minute on that stop, and we're going to get a rewind to see what in the world could have caused that. It just looks like he went in regularly with no damage, and yet he is considerably further behind than he would have expected. And you can see here 4 tires and fuel were the recipe, and Mark Sakochi just happened to be running around the corner. So Adam DeFore sacrifices the race lead and perhaps the championship lead. It's driver number 8 now in front, just off a pit stop. And best yet, he's got a 35-second advantage. And it looks like now it's cut down to 32, but he still has a half minute. 23 laps to go. Adam DeFore is going to make a risky call, but again, he has been fast enough to cut down that gap by the numbers so far today. So maybe it's possible he made the right decision. 22 laps to go this time by, and it looks like it is about time we get things finished up here in St. Petersburg. With the road course, the street circuit no less, let's crank it up from St. Petersburg, Florida with cameras brought to you by Whiplash SimCams, iRacing's best on the market. We'll be right back after we get live and loud from St. Pete. Let's crank it up live on FTN. "19 laps to go. Let's take a ride on board with race leader Mark Sakochi. Take a look and take a listen." across the line for Mark Sakochi. 121.355. Now, Adam DeFore ran a 126.664, and it looks like things for the DeFore camp are starting to come apart. That pit stop taking far longer than expected, and with 18 laps to go, his pace is starting to diminish, and in critical ways. I don't know what could have happened for the DeFore crew for this to have come place, but it looks like now he's being outpaced by drivers like Colton English and is barely hanging on to that third place. Now keep in mind, the gap cuts again to a 119. He had one bad lap, but with 18 laps to go, he would have to be basically perfect in running 119 laps to the end of this race to have a shot. If not, Mark Sakochi might just come away with the win. It would require consistency, but not perfection, out of Sakochi to win. For Adam DeFore, he would basically need a perfect race. Either way, it appears he's going to come out of this one with a championship lead if he stays in the top three. So it looks like he's in a comfortable spot regardless, but he is really pushing himself. You see him getting loose that time by. On the edge, coming up to lapper, John Bittler. John in 7th. Goes up to the high side. He'll let number 5 through. At the line again for Adam DeFore. 122.48 is 7/10 quicker than Mark Sakochi. Faster, but the deficit is significantly closed. Adam Gracie went down to pit road and relinquishes top spot. Now, as he does so, question becomes, how long can Sakochi last on the run he's got? 1 pit stop made for Sakochi, 2 for Gracie. It's been a 14-lap run so far for Mark, and it looks like in theory he should be able to get away with a one-stopper. Adam went it only once as well. Happened 7 laps ago. I think for Sakochi, going right at the midway point, the biggest benefit. You got all those laps back at speed, after having to fall out of contention briefly. And since he went to that 50-50 point, he's gotten himself back up to power. Now 16 laps remain, and the gap is big enough perhaps to coast on. Mark Sakochi will be 2nd in the championship after tonight. Adam DeFore, who finds himself, of course, 2nd in this race, was 4 points back in the championship lead. He will take that lead. And for Mark Sakochi, 9 points back. P2 looks like what he'll occupy. 15 to go this time by for Mark, as he crosses the start-finish with a continued comfortable advantage. Adam Gracie is still the last driver on the lead lap, now a minute behind Sakochi. 56 seconds. That's the deficit as they run. Next closest is Dawson Kent. Kent is now the one and only driver who is just 1 lap down. Everyone else 2 or more laps behind. Got 2 drivers officially out. Kurtzio and Ansley. Chris Norris has had a difficult night, but he is not done. While he runs 20 laps down, has been puttering under the pace. It appears he'll get by Tony Kurzweil and finish at least 12th today. So long as he comes to the line, at the end of it all, Chris Norris should take P12. "14 laps remaining. Sakochi puts another one down. Adam DeFore nowhere in sight. Let's see if there's any battles going on between lappers and leaders. Well, it looks like the lappers might be having one come through. Robert Wiggins and James Young are within 15 seconds of each other. Right now, across all drivers, that is the closest deficit. James Young qualified 11th today. Now has himself 2 spots up. Hasn't been a bad night for him, but it does appear that he's going to settle himself just inside the top 10 and not have a lot of room to go further. As low as 14th and last to begin the night. But it looks like he was able to get out of that. And the top 10, near definite. Just has to run out each lap with little issue. Take a brief look on board with Young and see exactly how he's running the circuit. He still has a pretty clean car, even though he's many a lap down. Inside the cockpit with driver number 31. Deficit up to 20 seconds. I guess the advantage is not quite with driver number 31 here, but a gap that is cutting into 10 seconds. Brian Wiggins and Colton English has gotten closer. Both drivers 2 laps down. They qualified alongside one another. And it appears now their deficit is cutting into the single seconds. "13 laps remain. With a dozen to do it, Adam Gracie holds a consistent number. Adam DeFore has been able to cut down that leading gap again and again. But he has only been able to do so on a 10th by 10th basis. He has not knocked off more than a second on any consistent means. It looks like he's been able to get about a quarter of a second each time by. A dozen laps remain. Mark Sakochi and the Kyle Busch number 8 may just have a chance to finish this race off a winner. Wiggins and English gap is still 10 seconds. No differences so far. Colton English goes wide. That's going to cut 2 seconds off the gap for Brian. Big gain as Wiggins does not at all have to deal with the lead lappers getting by. $11 to go next time around. Mark Sakochi is more than a half a minute back on any driver around him. And it looks like Chris Norris just got by Tony Kurzweil. That gets him officially up to 12th. Close call there, including Robert Young, as they just barely moved by Norris. Chris is beyond battered. And that front end is rattling on each turn and each lap, and yet he is still going. "11 laps to go. Patience beating some in ways never imagined. Your pole sitter being out of this race. And Chris Norris, who qualified 13th, being able to outrace him on the night, maybe not what we expected at all. Norris, a little bit wide that time by, but he has made a huge, huge gain on Kurdziel and finally is able to pass him. Dawson Kent here in 4th. He's been there for a long while now. 1 lap down. Now, the first half of this race was remarkably close. It looks like ever since that point, we really haven't seen all too much in terms of action, and that makes it a little bit tricky to call what's going on, but this is one of the few races of the season that even has a chance to get like that. Let's explain why. Ovals after ovals after ovals. That's what you're set to see, with only one more exception. The Miami Grand Prix. That's an interesting one. I guess that's going to be one more street circuit to be run. But Charlotte, South Boston, Chicagoland, Michigan, Indianapolis, Martinsville, and the season finale, August 1st, Las Vegas. That is the majority of your rest of the schedule. Next points-paying race is June 6th, Charlotte. Then you'll have South Boston, Chicagoland. That's the next stretch. On the 27th of June is your second and final road race. So maybe you're not a fan of all the action, but even still, not a fan of the lack of the action, shall we say. Even still, the road courses are few and far between on the schedule. First time taking these Gen 4s to a street track like St. Petersburg, and I'll tell you this much, Sakochi has fared the best of all, and he's now just set to try and bring it home. English and Wiggins, the gap is now 6.5 seconds between those two. Nine laps remaining. Driver number 3 has cut the gap in half over the course of the last 5 laps. So he's gotten himself an increasingly quicker car relative to English. Little bit of mistake into turn 1, but nothing too major. Ryan Wiggins in control of this fight. .8 seconds. Colton English might fall back to 6th, but no matter what happens for English, again, one of the critical stories we followed all day long, the definition of patience. Perhaps not the best of the best in terms of pace, but either way, he has been able to weather an uncharted course a lot better than a majority of this field. Up 5 spots on where he qualified. Wiggins is up 3. Brian is able to get that pass on English. Both of them would end up 4 places up on where they qualified. .5 seconds with 8 laps to go. Now officially 7 as Sakochi drops across the line. 50 seconds back is Kent on the next closest driver in Adam Gracie. Mark not on the circuit tonight. The number 8 is Sakochi. still leads by a half minute over Adam DeFore, and I guess, while I wouldn't say he's conceded, there really doesn't look to be any opportunity for him to get back up there pace-wise. Kent going to have a run in here with Adam DeFore. The lapper in the 27 hasn't been around many drivers so far today. 4th place. Let's see what happens now and how quickly Adam DeFore can get by him. Just takes one corner. Dawson Kent a little wide, and the doors open. The lap drivers have been remarkably considerate over the course of this race. That's another example. Dawson Kent looking to get in no trouble. Things have steadied out on every battle so far. All quiet down the front straight. Ryan and Robert Wiggins now are position to position, only they're separate by 7 laps. Ryan 2 down, Roberts 9 down, with James Young 37 seconds back and the only driver with a real chance to pass him directly. Doesn't look like with the deficits he's facing, that'll be the case. James Young running his own race very far out compared to where Wiggins is. If there's any chance for a pass on the racetrack, it still comes down to whether or not Brian can get to Colton. The only battles we've really seen are between drivers on different laps, and it looks like we've got one slowly but surely building up. That is Ray Partridge, and as of late, Ray has been looking a little bit quicker. Maybe he'll give us a little bit of a show. Coming up to Brian Wiggins here with 5 laps remaining. Not a great exit out there for Partridge, but he decides not to pull the pit road. Sakochi gets by the 29. "29 seconds between your top 2 drivers." .4 between Colton English and Wiggins. That's the tightest the battle has been over the course of this final stretch. Less than 5 seconds between these guys. laps to go, coming up on 3. Sakochi across the line, looking to seal the deal. Adam DeFore has second place all but locked. Gracie Moore the same. It's still English and Wiggins. Everyone's watching to see if these two can figure something out. Three laps to go. Wiggins gets the gap down to 2. Oh, Colton English goes around. Say goodbye to the battle. The 45 spins. Wiggins takes 5th. Colton English just comes apart at the end of this race. Is he going to stay on the track? He doesn't have much an incentive to. 6 laps up on the next closest. Three to go. Coming across the line, make it 2 for Mark Sakochi when he comes through this time by. Now just behind the number 3 of Wiggins. He's been letting this driver get away for the last few corners. One of the most common collected runs we've seen all the season, and the big difference maker was just one pit stop. .26 seconds is the deficit. While Adam DeFore has been able to pull it up just a little bit closer, it still doesn't look like much as a guarantee. White flag this time around. One lap remaining. Sakochi, DeFore, Gracie, Kent, and 5th place man Wiggins are set to finish the job. Mark has run a very solid race, but I wouldn't say incredible, and yet I think that's the reason he's come to win. He wasn't the fastest driver in qualifying. That honor went to Tony Kurdziel. Tony was able to get the qualifying position he wanted and led to 16 laps. Next from there was Adam DeFore, who led the middle portion of this race and did so in dominant fashion, and yet lost it off a pit stop. And now, donning the colors which made Kyle Busch so iconic in the NASCAR Cup Series, and donning the number which represented the last moments of his illustrious career, Mark Sakochi has come through with tribute and a dominant late race stand. And I don't think there's any way more fitting to end a night of tribute to a legend than to see his colors and number finish on top just one more time. Just last week, Kyle Busch got his final of his 69 Truck Series wins and his final National Series win. This week, Mark Sakochi in the number 8 brings the tribute home with a closeout unlike any other at St. Pete. Takes the championship fight to another level, while DeFore will take the title lead. Sakochi's now top 2 as the 5 slides at the line. He's in no jeopardy of losing second if he just keeps going, and he will. But nobody can beat Sakochi as the number 8 brings home victory. 25 laps led on the day as Sakochi wins the first road race of the season. Now, with a long and well-deserved victory lap. To burn down the house, Mark Sakochi makes it back to the front straight. Sakochi is your race winner, and what a night of tribute for driver number 8. We'll be back with post-race coverage, including results and interviews after the following messages from our friends at iRacing. Thank you for tuning in. We're just getting started with post-race from St. Petersburg. We'll be right back after this.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Mark Sakochi gets the job done. Sakochi leads to 4, and third goes Adam Gracie. A dominant finish with 25 laps led. Mark Sakochi, DeFore Gracie, the top 3. Fourth, Dawson Kent, Brian Wiggins 5th, Colton English 6th, and Robert Wiggins goes P7 with James Young, Ray Partridge, and John Bittler wrapping up the top 10. Final drivers to go with are Chris Norris, Elijah Grant, Tony Kurtziel, and Colt Ansley to end the 14 who registered for action tonight. Mark Sakochi, of course, being the first of which has a hell of a race. Starts in second, and he plays the long game, and it takes him a while, nearly, or in fact, more than half the race to find his own, but when he did, he ran away, and driver number 8 with the tribute scheme of the week finds a way to victory lane and does so with a walkaway second half. Mark, you have a copy?
Yep, I got you.
Well, what about this win tonight? It looks like you brought the number 8 back to victory lane and had a great second half to go with it.
Yeah, it was I don't know what happened to them guys in front of us. I heard that maybe Tony had some damage and Adam maybe a speeding penalty. We were on pace with those guys. Yeah, we just their misfortune put us in victory lane.
And of course, tonight, all about avoiding problems. It looks like you kept one of the cleanest cars on the racetrack. What was it like dealing with this track, of course? St. Pete, Street Circuit, we got 110% power, and it was warm. How did you keep yourself planted to the racetrack?
Setup was really good. I found something at some point yesterday. The thing was glued to the track. We were hoping it was going to get pretty hot. We had a lot of rear grip. Yeah, it was really cool to do it in the Kyle Busch tribute scheme. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. It's been a while since I've been in victory lane. Jeez. Yeah, I gotta thank John Bittler, my teammate, who also sponsors the series with IRD. I gotta thank everybody that watches us every week. I gotta thank all the drivers that come out. Field was a little light tonight. Appreciate the guys that did come out and stick it out. I know this was a tougher one. Yeah, I gotta thank Lyle for doing race control. And yeah, I thank you for filling in. And yeah, car was great. We got shuffled back there at the start of the race. I was getting a little frustrated. Guys are putting us in some compromising positions, and we didn't want to tear up our stuff too early, so we ended up fading back to eighth or so, and had to pick our way back up through there. But yeah, we were able to get it done and park it in victory lane.
And a great win that went, of course, with a fitting tribute scheme. Motor Racing World grieving a unthinkable loss, really. Does it mean a little bit more given what's going on and what you got on that car?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really cool that we were able to do that. It's just something we just thought of last night to do. I figured I had to do something, just, typically running the number 8, and him being in the number 8 most recently. And yeah, everybody kind of knows him, more for the running the M&Ms. I guess that was probably at the height of his career. I wasn't a big Kyle Busch fan when I was younger, when he first got started, but I'd say in the last handful of years, just really I became a fan of his. I rooted for him, and I was hoping for him to. And it was cool to see him go out, with a win there in the Truck Series. Yeah, so I guess this one goes out to Kyle.
And a huge win with a finishing performance second to none. Mark, big win from St. Pete. Until we head to our All-Star race, any final messages you'd like to send out?
Yeah, just thanks again to all of our guys that show up week in and week out and continue to grow this series. And yeah, hopefully next week we have a big crowd and we put on a good show.
Mark Sakochi taking victory after starting second from St. Petersburg brings the M&M's number 8 to victory lane. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David.
Mark taking P1. Adam DeFore looked to have himself on the fast track to victory lane. Things don't quite work out at the end there, and he ends up finishing in second. Qualified 5th and made a quick statement to take the race lead through the early middle stages, but after a trip down a pit road, just not another chance to cut that deficit. Adam, second place, and I believe the points lead coming out of this one too.
Hey man, how are you?
Doing all right here, and it looks like the number 5 team, red hot with speed from beginning to end. So, what was it like out of St. Pete?
Honestly, it was really fun until, I got my little speeding penalty on pit road. That sucked. But other than that, 5 car was fast. It was a lot faster than I was expecting.
No doubt about that. You qualified 5th place and ended up, of course, immediately storming up to the lead. You think you left a little bit on the table in qualifying?
Yes, no doubt. I could not get my tires warm at all. and just lucky I didn't hit the wall, or I would have been in the back with a couple other guys. So, either way, second's not bad, and I think we got the points lead now. So, looking pretty good.
And you're right about that. Points lead heading into our all-star break, so a little bit of time. What's the mentality for the rest of this regular season with every point counting so much?
Consistency, really. If I can just continue to get top fives like I have just about all season, then I think I'll be in pretty good shape. Plus, if I can get me a couple wins, I think we'll be all right.
Adam DeFore, second place, and tonight in the Kyle Busch-styled number 5 Chevrolet Monte Carlo. Before we let you go, any final words or shout-outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, just, sucks for the whole NASCAR world right now and racing world in general with Kyle Busch passing away. And just, thinking about him and his family, especially his 2 kids and his wife, But, yeah, man, overall, it was a good race.
Adam DeFore taking second place from P5 on the starting grid. Gains from start to finish in Florida. Thank you for stopping by.
All right, man. Thank you.
One more interview to take. Adam Gracie, the third place man, started in 4th place and was able to make his way up 1 spot as the first driver off the lead lap. Either way, Adam, welcome to the broadcast booth. How are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Well, doing pretty well here, and it looks like the 17 team had its fair deal of speed. Getting up there into the podium conversation, you didn't fall out of the top 5 all night long.
Yeah, it was a real good race. I felt pretty confident behind the wheel. Actually the first time I've ever even driven the vehicle. So I felt, once I got it my head down, found a groove. I really, really found the speed and was able to pull out consistent laps.
And I'll tell you this much. One thing we also know when we look back at you, you only had a little bit of damage on the right side. Otherwise, you kept yourself in good shape. One thing we noticed, it was warm on track. Did that affect how tire wear worked for you guys?
Yeah, sometimes under braking, it was a little bit tricky, but I was able to keep the tires fairly healthy throughout my stints.
And all things considered, that health brought you far and away ahead of the rest of these drivers to keep yourself on the lead lap conversation. Now, great race for you. We've got ourselves an all-star race right up next week. So now, a little bit of a break from the points-paying action. How do you feel as we head toward Atlanta for our next event?
With this great run, I'm pretty confident going into next week. A little bit more practice, run some laps on at Atlanta, get a feel for the car, and see what we can do.
Adam Gracie, third place in the night in the number 17. Any final shout-outs or messages you'd like to send? The floor is yours.
I actually like to dedicate this great podium to my little 10-year-old daughter. She's a great support system throughout this race, and yeah.
Adam Gracie, P3 on the day from St. Petersburg. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Adam on the move takes third, and tonight, fitting to see 2 tributes to Kyle Busch ending up on the top 2 steps. Adam DeFore in the number 5, Mark Sakochi in the number 8. Top to bottom, head to toe, both drivers representing one of the greatest in stock car racing history. There was no issue from beginning to end for these drivers, and they got themselves up to the top of the board, and they stayed there. And as fitting as it is that only 1 week ago, Busch climbed out of the number 7 Spire Motorsport truck for the final time, a National Series winner, and the racing world is decorated again in his honor, as you saw tonight. Thank you for tuning in to our coverage of the NSR Gen 4 Cup Series. Regularly scheduled programming will continue next week, next Saturday night. That will be at the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway with Garrett Hess on the call for the All-Star race. Until then, I've been your host, David Kreutz, commentating and producing. We'll be back with continued coverage of the Integrity Racing League next Tuesday. Not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday as we head toward the halfway marker on that championship campaign. Congratulations to Mark Sakochi on his big win as Adam DeFore takes the championship lead. We'll see you next week on FTN. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you have a fantastic night.